Hello, everyone. Once again, I welcome you back to the online official platform of the Sattva project. Myself, Samisha Kamle.
Hello everyone, myself Samiksha Mishra, and we both are from the Sattva Youth, which is a Buddhist youth program initiated by the Sattva Project. So before begin the session, first of all, on behalf of the Sattva Project, I would like to thank our streamer sponsors and media partners, Durian Asian and Durian FM, and one more important individual who manages all the technical issues in the background, which is our broadcast director, Brother Chong. Brother Chong, would you like to say something?
Very good evening and welcome to our session. Please do like and share our post so that more people can benefit. And for those of you who are watching later on YouTube, please subscribe and like and share as well. Thank you. And back to you, Samiksha.
Thank you, Brother
Thank you,
Chang.
Brother Chong.
So, yes, let's begin our session by introducing our today's moderator and today's contributor. So, so this is the first session of our Noble Tara series, which is a new series. So, the series is entitled Empowering Buddhist Women Here and Now. And now let's introduce our speakers to you. So our today's moderator of this session is Andrea Payne. She was introduced to Vajrayana Buddhism and breath meditation in 2014, and her practice grows strong to date. Originally from Romania, Andrea moved to Maine, USA in 2013. Her journey exposed her to what are now many of her loves: philosophy, poetry, history, and mythology. The study of religions and spirituality and the arts that weave the tapestry of our experience. Andrea gets to play at the intersection of many groups. She facilitates several programs and discussions in her local community and in Maine, as well as abroad, such as hosting lectures and workshops with international speakers or talking on a speaking engagement with her alma mater, Babes Bulia University in Clutch, Napoca, Transylvania. Okay. So I am sorry if I've mispronounced some of the words, and I welcome Sister Andrea to this program, and I would like to thank her for helping us to moderate this program. Welcome, Sister Andrea.
Thank you very much, Samisha. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to the conversation.
Yes.
Can we have okay? So let's introduce our first contributor of the tonight discussion, Venerable Tenzin Dasel. Venerable Tenzin Dasel is a teacher and meditation instructor at Tashi Getzel Ling in Maine, USA. Venerable is a graduate in BA from the prestigious Brits College, USA. She has received her degree of Masters in Arts from the respected Bangor Theological Seminary, which is the third oldest seminary in the USA. She has been practicing Buddha Dharma with her root Lama, Khensu Rinpoche Lobsang Setan, since 2002, and she was ordained by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama in 2017. She is the founder of Main Mindfulness Project USA. She's also the retreat teacher Thosamling Institute and Nunnery, 2017, teaching tours in India, Russia, USA, Taiwan, the Bahamas from 2016 to 2019. She was an assistant to Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo from 2019 to 2021. She was an awardee, National Association of Professional Women's Wellness. She is also the Sattva instructor and a conference retreat leader, speaker, moderator, member of the Female Sangha Leadership Committee. She is also she was also the presenter of Parliament of the World Religions 2015, Salt Lake City, USA, and 2018, Toronto, Canada. She is a meditation leader and presenter, Sakyaditha International Association of Buddhist Women, Hong Kong, 2017, and Australia, 2019. She is active member of Association of Non-Himalayan Nuns. We all welcome you, Venerable Tenzin Dasel.
Hello, to my dear sisters, and to the two brothers who really put this program together for us. Thank you to you, and to everybody who's listening and tuning in. Very good day to wherever you are. Very much a pleasure to be with everyone here today.
Thank you. Our second contributor is Venerable Rongdao. Venerable Rongdao was born and raised in Malaysia. She was ordained in the Chinese Mahayana tradition. She is currently Assistant Professor of Religious Studies and East Asian Studies at McGill University, Canada. Venerable Rongdao's academic work focuses on the changing landscape in Chinese Buddhism and identity production in the 20th century. Venerable writes about Buddhist education, citizenship discourse, lineage networks, transnational movements, and monastic economy in modern Chinese Buddhism. We all welcome you, Venerable Rongdao.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice to be here with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our third contributor of today's program is Sister Lo Ling. Sister Lo Ling graduated with a LLB degree from University of London, MD in Business Administration from University of Hull, UK. Currently the president of Buddhist Missionary Society, Malaysia. And she's also the vice president of Malaysian Buddhist Consultative Council. She's also the chairman of Standing Committee of Interfaith Dialogue World Fellowship of Buddhist. She is also the executive member Malaysian Consultative Council of Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Taoism, and she is also the member of Harmony Committee on Interfaith Harmony under the auspice of the Ministry of National Unity of Malaysia. So a warm welcome to Sister Lo Ling. So let me also introduce to you our fourth speaker, who is Sister Smitha Lahiri. She has spent over 20 years in the technology industry. Then after Smitha decided to give it up and dedicate more time to her Dharma journey. After finding some precious teachers and attending several retreats, she decided to undertake structured study of Dharma. She recently graduated with a diploma in Buddhist philosophy from Nalanda tradition from Tibet House, Delhi. She is currently on the board of Tashi Ketse Ling Buddhist Center in Maine and works closely with Venerable Dasel. During her corporate tenure, she was on the advisory board of the Grace Hopper Conference for Women in Technology and worked passionately for the cause. She was a counselor for cancer patients and their caregivers, something that helped her immensely in her Dharma practice. Smitha is based in Bangalore, India. A warm welcome to Sister Smitha. We are pleased to have
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Samiksha, Brother Chong, and Brother Sharab for having me. Thank you, Sattva, for the opportunity. And, I'm really hope I am able to do justice with all the venerables present here.
So once again, I thank you all to join us on this Sattva project. And now we hand over this program to Sister Andrea. So Sister Andrea.
Thank you very much. Once again, welcome to everyone tuning in from wherever you are. We have a wonderful representation today on the panel from many traditions, many geographical locations, many cultures altogether. So it truly is a joy. Thank you very much to the Sattva Project for bringing us together in such a wonderful format. So today we are kicking off this series called Empowering Buddhist Women Here and Now. And there is so much to unpack there to begin with. We won't pretend that we can get everything in today's session, but we will sure introduce you to the basic concepts, and we hope that you'll be able to join us in future episodes. So I would like to start us off by going into the basics. What does empowerment mean? And certainly we are privileged to have both representatives of the secular Sangha as well as two wonderful venerable monastics here joining us. So we will be looking first at the etymology of the secular meaning of empowerment, which comes from the Old French word formed from the particle en and the word pouvoir, which means power. So in the sense that we think of empowerment today in the secular way, it is about having authority, giving authority to someone. Power itself means having ability to act or do something, having strength, vigor, might, having efficacy, control, mastery, and overall influence. So it is interesting to list all of these words because through a Buddhist lens, the question becomes, where do we get power? Who gives us power? What is power to us? So some of these questions we'll get to look at more closely today. I also want to offer you the Sanskrit meaning of empowerment, which is abhisheka. And so this term refers to a ritual bathing or anointing, a type of consecration. The translation is bathing of the divinity to whom worship is offered. So we're talking about the religious rite or a method of prayer in which a practitioner pours liquid offered to a sacred image. And certainly, I won't pretend to fully understand this concept. And the point of today's conversation won't be to look too deeply at it, but keeping it in a more general sense, in having these two polars to play within this space. So I thought that there would be a good point to continue into thinking of how to break this down, how to break this concept of empowerment in a way that we can work with. So immediately I thought of the three jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And certainly we have the Buddha who models empowerment, and it is what we're striving to pursue in our own practice, in our collective practices. So I would like to invite us to think about the archetypes that we see present, specifically the feminine archetypes in Buddhism. And briefly, I will refer to the introductions and say that we have Vajrayana Buddhism today on the panel, as well as Mahayana Chinese Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. So I would love to welcome our speakers to address the feminine archetypes within these traditions and cultures. And we will go over Noble Tara, Patachara, and Kuan Yin. So I would like to invite now Venerable Tenzin Dasel to share a few things with us about Noble Tara.
Thank you. Yes, what a wonderful opportunity to be able to share the idea and the potential for the noble heart to shine through the women's experience, the female experience, as well as using the power of the divine feminine in this way as a model for our highest aspiration, which actually we need to feel empowered in order to become enlightened. So the idea in Vajrayana Buddhism is that, you know, male and female can attain enlightenment in one lifetime. And this is a bit controversial for some, but within the tantric teachings in Vajrayana, it says very clearly that yes, the Buddha actually said when Ananda was asking, can we not start a bhikkhuni lineage for the women, because the Buddha's stepmother and a bunch of 500 noble ladies from the court had cut their hair and were following the Buddha around asking, can we leave the householder's life and become, you know, the followers, bhikkhuni? And finally, the Buddha said, yes, actually, when Ananda said, are women not capable of attaining? And the Buddha said, actually, yes, they are capable. Shakyamuni acknowledged, yes, of course, it has nothing really much to do with the gender. It has to do with the mind. And then he finally agreed to found the bhikkhuni lineage. Now, almost 2,600 years ago, this was a very radical step that the Buddha took. And he was cautious about it for many reasons. And part of it is that leaving the householder's life for a female means giving up the traditional role that was projected onto women from time immemorial, which was to be the mother, to be the gardener, the harvester, gatherer of foods, to be the nurturer. And, he was probably mindful of the fact that, geez, if I have all the women wanting to leave that role, who's going to take care of the family? So the Buddha wasn't wanting to break down the social construct altogether, but he was wanting to open the door to women who had the causes and conditions, the karma, to come onto the path full-heartedly, to really attain, who really wanted to seek full enlightenment. And to do that, you have to feel empowered, which is why, his stepmother had been the queen who raised him. And many of the first bhikkhunis were actually highly educated from that upper class who followed her out of court and became nuns. And I was noticing as we were introduced today, because the other sisters, the other venerables and I haven't met each other, but they're very highly educated. And so there is something in Buddhism about, for a female or a male practitioner, anyone who's following the path, to really take it on. There's reading, there's comprehension, there's contemplation, and these things we have to do actively in whatever body we're in. What happened in Tibet was when the Buddha gave teachings initially, he did 3 turnings of the wheel. And one of the turnings, the last turnings, was a very high kind of through the highest intellectual philosophical approach, understanding through Tantrayana, through practice, through this other idea that Sister Andreea touched upon, which is through Tantra, Vajrayana, and empowerment, receiving these kind of direct initiations, which are very much to do with a very specialized form of practice. Now, in Mahayana Vajrayana Buddhism, we use these archetypes you can see behind me. Here's Shakyamuni Buddha. Right over my head is Aryatara in her white form. And over in the corner here is the future Buddha to come, Maitreya Buddha. And so these tankas were used as symbols and ways of teaching these enlightened qualities. Now, Aryatara, she's representing the fully enlightened qualities of the female. And so that when women were taking teachings and going forth, renouncing their genderized roles, they were able to see an image of their own potential enlightenment, their own potential reality as an enlightened being, which of course at that point transcends any concepts of gender, transcends any concepts of class, transcends any concepts of how we come to think of this world from a human perspective, and raises up into these higher realms of the mind, of the enlightened mind, which can take any appearance it wants. Once enlightenment is attained, the mind can take many in any form at once. And so Tara became one of these enlightened forms that was able to, as an intermediary, to kind of connect with the human on the quest, and not just for female practitioners, but for men as well. So Aryatara in Vajrayana Buddhism is really seen as the mother of all Buddhas, because she is the wisdom that accomplishes. She's the wisdom that fully attains to the enlightenment and gets it. So she was really a human being many, many thousands of years ago in another place, even called another galaxy, called the Brilliant Lights. And she made many, many offerings every day, daily, to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas immeasurably. And eventually she gained bodhicitta. She gained her insight and mind of enlightenment, and then made her vow. At that time, she was called Yeshe Dawa, so Wisdom Moon. And at that time, she changed her name to Tara. And even then, when she was practicing, up until she attained, some of the monks saw her very devotedly making her offerings, and they said to her, "Oh, you should make offerings so that in your next life you'll get a male rebirth and then you can attain enlightenment." And she said, "No." She said, "Here I've attained. Here in my enlightened mind, there is no male, there is no female." And very many work for the enlightened qualities and Dharma activities in the form of male. I will continue to take the form of a female, because very few work to promote the enlightened qualities in the form of a female. And I will now be known as Tara, the liberator. And so Aryatara takes these 21 aspects. You see her in the green color with her right leg outstretched on a lotus, symbolizing that she's already attained enlightenment. The lotus symbolizes renunciation from samsara. She's already lifted up through her practice out of samsara. And she's in an active posture. Her left hand is holding the Utpala flower with 3 fingers raised up, reminding us of the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the ones who are going to carry through all the way to enlightenment. And her right hand is open in the gesture of what's called the boon granting gesture, meaning she'll give you anything you're praying for and any kind of aid to help you on your path to full enlightenment, full awakening. Now, the other 20 Taras around her are also qualities of the enlightened mind, qualities of energy that we need, empowerment and activity that we use on the path in order to attain complete and full enlightenment. So the green symbolizes activity in the world of skillful means. Green is connected with the element of air, with breath. And in Tibetan practice, in Vajrayana practice, and actually in all of our traditions, in Mahayana and Theravada too, the Buddha taught breath meditation very, very strongly in all the sutras. You'll find it because breath and mind are very closely connected. If we don't have breath, we don't have consciousness. Basically, we have no life. Not many beings get taught about breath because we tend to focus on a material level of water and food as very important to our life. But breath is the first essential quality. And so Tara and the breath and the mind are very closely intertwined. These other 20 aspects have different colors, different mudras. So the mudra is a body posture, symbolizing other times that we need different qualities of activity. Some are compassionate, wrathful activities. So never angry. Wrath is not meant in the sense of punishing or anger, but in the sense of removing difficult obstacles with compassion. Some others are showing joy. Some others are showing purity, the white color, the Tara, the peacock, the peahen, she's showing white. They all have different names and different aspects and qualities. So I really invite you and encourage everyone. You don't have to be practicing Mahayana Buddhism. Tara helps everyone. And her mantra is Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Swaha. She's got so many precious commitments in her own heart to bring all out of suffering and to establish them in the path towards full awakening and enlightenment. And so there's no better image and no better active archetype, bodhisattva, female Buddha for us in Vajrayana Buddhism than Tara as the awakened female Buddha. So I hope that you learned a little bit more about her. I want to keep my comments brief because the other venerables have much to share about other wonderful enlightened female Buddhas. But Arya Tara for us, she really is called the mother of all Buddhas because she brings these 21 qualities that help us in our wisdom, in our compassion, bring the whole path to fruition. And this is what we mean by empowering women here and now, is that women have the capacities and the qualities. We need to believe in that in our own practice to be able to bring it to fruition. We can go all the way.
Thank you very much, Venerable Tenzin Dasel, for calling Tara on to us. It was lovely to hear her mantra. And one thing that I want to have us think about is the practicality of working with these feminine archetypes. So what I know about Tara too is not only does she come in many colors and many aspects of compassion and wisdom, I do know that she oftentimes comes in for various challenges we may face in our life, such as natural disasters or having lost property because someone stole it. So I do want to, as we continue learning more about different feminine archetypes, I want to think about how we can summon them and how we can work with them in a direct way. Venerable Rongdao, I would love to welcome you now in the conversation and learn a little bit about Guan Yin as a feminine archetype.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, everyone. I, of course, I can, I think we can consider Guan Yin or Avalokiteshvara as a feminine archetype, and of course, many turned to her as a source of courage, empowerment, and also wisdom and blessing, right? And just as Venerable Tenzin said, I also wanted to stress that she she that connection is not exclusive, right? For female practitioners. So anyway, so in the East Asian traditions, we have the Bodhisattva Guan Yin, who is considered this embodiment of compassion. And within the tradition, I mean, from China to Japan and Korea and other places as well, she appears in many different forms, right? And in the Lotus Sutra, she says to appear in 33 different manifestations, right? I mean, everything from lay and monastic, male and female, and so on. And the idea is that she answers calls for help, right? So whenever there's call for help, because of the suffering that we all have, then there is Guan Yin Avalokiteshvara responding. And hence, in the tradition, you see Guan Yin manifesting or depicted in many different forms. And the picture that you're seeing on the screen here is also not uncommon, in other Indians or even Himalayan tradition as well. It's called a bodhisattva posture, right? The way that she's seated, very relaxed, and very at ease. So, and then in China specifically, and also throughout much of East Asia, she's also later on known to be the the guardian or the bodhisattva for females, right? And that's why later in the tradition, because in the Indian and the Himalayan tradition, you very often see her depicted as a male bodhisattva, right? With mustache and very muscular and so on. And over time in China. She started to become more and more and more and more feminine, appearing in very specific forms that would appeal to many female followers. So, and then of course the tradition is also full of tales of encounters that people had with Kuan Yin, right? And then and I want to also stress that yes, we can always look at our texts and records and our sutras to identify Guan Yin. But the reason why a bodhisattva like Guan Yin it's powerful in the tradition is that they continue, right, to appeal and to appear to people and to interact, to answer, right, people's call for help. So in other words, right, yes, there's history, there's tradition, but at the same time, it's happening right here, right now, on a daily basis, that people turn to these bodhisattvas, right? So that, in a nutshell, it's Guan Yin in the tradition, and of course, throughout much of East Asia, people, male, female, right, monastic, lay, turn to her for all kinds of reasons. And a lot of these are spiritual, right? That has to do with a person's spiritual practice, but very, very often also for very, very mundane issues and reasons. So, in other words, right, an archetype or a bodhisattva like Guan Yin embodies this compassionate, loving, and of course, often, right, a quality that is so associated with the feminine, right? So then, she represents, this Buddhist ideal of really limitless, boundless compassion, and that's why everyone, right? Everyone's it's attracted, by a bodhisattva like Guan Yin in the tradition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Venerable. You brought up a very important point, which is brings us back to the title, Empower Buddhist Women Here and Now. We're not here to exclude anybody, and we thought that it would be a good topic to address, that of supporting Buddhist women, because there is a lot going on today when it comes to gender, and I think gender is a very hot topic from many perspectives, from the Me Too movement to the LGBTQIA group that is seeking equality. At the end of the day, I think that's what we're talking about. So it was interesting to hear you mention that the Guanyin has shifted from tradition, from their gender being either female or male. Could you speak to why you think why this shift occurs?
Well, thank you. That's a very difficult question. Well, scholars have different theories as to why that happened specifically in China, right? That gender transformation, and you can even say that Guanyin as a bodhisattva or Avalokiteshvara as a bodhisattva went through a sex change, right, in China. So much so that, of course, you can still see, certain iconography even within the Chinese tradition of Guanyin depicted as a male bodhisattva, but later on in the tradition, she is almost exclusively depicted as female. And of course, scholars have many theories, and a lot of this has to do with, say, well, at least these scholars argue with the kind of like social, even political conditions of China during a certain time in history. But then, I'm not going to like generalize, and so. And then, scholars even sometimes disagree on when exactly that happened, right? An earlier theory seems to suggest that it happened, during the 10th, 11th century. So that would be the Song dynasty, and people who pay attention to kind of the changes that were happening in society during the Song period seems to suggest that, oh yeah, it was a very oppressive time for women, and that's why women felt the need for an inspiration embodied by a female bodhisattva and so on. But later on, you also have scholars who seem to suggest that so-called gender transformation seems to take place even earlier, right? So in other words, I'm not going to kind of give a definitive answer and go, this is when it happened and this is why it happened. But then if you think of it, that I think it's exactly that fluidity, right, that makes a bodhisattva like Avalokiteshvara so incredibly powerful, incredibly empowering, and incredibly inspiring, because basically whatever it helps, right? An imagery that is also very familiar to a lot of us across tradition is Avalokiteshvara depicted in the thousand hands, thousand eyes forms, right? And so basically the idea is that, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen that photo, right? Or a painting or even a statue. So the idea basically is that, with all the eyes and the hands, this bodhisattva who embodies compassion responds and reaches out whenever sentient beings need help, be it spiritual, be it mundane, lay, monastic, I would say Buddhist, non-Buddhist, right? So whenever people need help, Avalokiteshvara is there.
Really wonderfully put. Thank you so much. And this further brings me from a Buddhist perspective in the realm of concepts, and how we need them, we need to work with them, and then at some point we need to let them go. And this idea of fluidity of Avalokiteshvara, Guanyin, whatever other names are used across the board, it's really valuable for me personally. I hope for all of you as well. Thank you. And next, I want to welcome Sister Pai Ling, who will introduce us to Patachara.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. Yeah, Pantachara was a notable female figures in Buddhism, as explained in the Pali Canon. So it implies that it's in Theravada. She was born as a wealthy daughter of a wealthy banker, and she fell in love with one of the father's servants, ran off with him to live happily. However, through a series of tragic accidents, she lost her husband and her two sons, as well as her parents and brothers, almost at the same time. So you can imagine, she was actually driven to near insanity, running here and there nakedly and madly. But she was blessed. She was born during the Buddha time, and when she approached the Buddha said to her, share with her the Dharma, and immediately she actually understand the nature of impermanence and enter the fruitions, the very first fruition of Arahant. We call it Sotapanna. And here, one very important point that I would like to share, that as what Venerable has said, both men and female have the same potential to attain enlightenment or to gain liberation in this very life. So in Theravada, we say we are all human beings. There's the words called Manusia. We have this same mind that can work. Given the same opportunity, we can learn, we can practice, and we can realize. In Pali, it's called Pariyati, Paripatti, and Pariveda. So Pantachara, after understand the nature of impermanence, and as a Sotapanna, she actually entered the orders, become a nun, and she was the foremost exponent of the Vinaya, meaning the one that observed the monastery rules very well. And her counterpart is actually Venerable Upali. And interestingly, the nun have 311 Vinaya rules to observe, but the monk have lesser, 227. That will be another topic that we can discuss. But coming back to here, after that, she was so skilled that she's actually helping many others, especially the women in grief with loss of their loved one, to regain their sanity and quench their pain of their lives, of their lost. So with that, they is still suffering, but there's no more sufferer with the equanimity and understanding of the true natures of life, that is impermanence. So she is actually the life example. Again, I would like to stress that a lay person who can actually attain enlightenment. And not only the lay person, but a lay ladies. Yeah. And the last one, she becomes, as you can see from the screen, that these statues of Pantachara. She's actually the figures of soothing of grief. And this is the strength that we can gain from her. And the Buddha actually spoke two verses with reference to her. Verse 288 in the Dhammapada and 289. The verse 288 goes like this: not son, nor parents, nor close relatives can protect one assailed by death Indeed, neither kid nor kin can give protection. And verse 289, knowing this, the wise man restrains by morality should quickly clear all the obstacles to path leading to nibbana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister
That's all I like to
Ling.
share.
I am actually quite recently introduced to Patachara, and what I've learned about her, firstly with the name, thank you for pointing out towards the end here that from what I understand, her name means that who does not wear clothes. And in what I in from your story, I see a lot of layers of renunciation, a lot of loss, as you're saying, and that's why probably she ends up being the feminine archetype that supports with grief. She comes in and helps those who have to deal with this heartache. So it was interesting to learn about her story, where very gradually she lost her son and her husband and another child, then her parents, and then she becomes mad with it all. It's almost unbearable for her to carry with all this pain. And it was with her finding Buddha and finding the Dharma that brought her back and converted her in this pure essence of supporting those who experience the same thing.
Sorry, may I just add? Her original name was Rupwati, meaning beautiful. I would like to invite those interested to actually Google Patachara to read the full stories. It's very long. I just get the very brief one to share with you. That her loss is in a very short time. She lost so many. Yet this too will be over with Dharma. Dharma, yes.
That's right. Yes, thank you. That's a really good invitation for those who want to do further research. Her story is quite beautiful and challenging. Not too dissimilar from Samsara. Yet another exemplification of it. So thank you for giving us an overview into how to work with the feminine archetype. And again, we focus on the feminine today, but it's not to say that there aren't any other archetypes we can work with to find empowerment. So I would like to move from the archetypal level into the realm of the collective and the communities around us. So since we're all Buddhist practitioners here, I want to now draw attention to the Sangha with the capital S and the secular Sangha as well, and to welcome us all to consider, why do Buddhist women need empowerment? So next, I would love to welcome Smitha to share from her experience.
Thank you, Andrea, for inviting me to answer that really tough or rather thought-provoking question. That's not an easy one. Why does anybody need empowerment, not just a Buddhist woman? And there's what's so special about Buddhist women needing empowerment? So it really set me thinking. And, at a very fundamental level, Buddha Dharma itself is so all-empowering. The very thought that I think Venerable spoke to it, and Sister Piling as well, that all of us, male or female, have Buddha nature within us. That itself is, to me personally, is very, very empowering, that we have equal potential to attain enlightenment, and there is nothing differentiating me or anybody else in terms of my potential for enlightenment. So that, in an ideal scenario itself, is so empowering for me personally. But I think, and we all know that Buddha himself has, instituted the order of the nuns, he along with Ananda. And in the Mahaparinirvana Sutra, he also asserted that he would not enter nirvana until all his followers from the fourfold sangha actually, accomplished, trained, and kind of became knowers of dharma. And when we talk about fourfold sangha, we talk about the monks, the nuns, the laymen, the laywomen. So I think in early Buddhism, women were very empowered from the very onset, but I think somewhere along the way that probably got lost. And today's there are situations and conditions in the conventional world where systems have evolved in a way that women probably do not feel equal or do not have the same opportunities as men, or probably have been left behind along the way. For example, I mean, if you look at a woman who wants to enter a nunnery or become a nun, would probably face more resistance in the family and find it hard to get there, but and also the lack of financial help to sustain the dharma journey. I think women face all kinds of challenges. And as a lay practitioner, I think I am better positioned to practice because of the availability of teachings, resources, and the freedom to, practice my path. Probably would be harder to, take on the journey of a nun. So, but when you're saying why do Buddhist women need empowerment, I think we need to take a step back and see how do we look at empowerment through different lenses, right? I think there was this one particular article that I was reading and that looked at it in a very beautiful way and really made me think is that empowerment at the core is actually self-empowerment. That is all there is, right? We need to empower ourselves. That is the essence of all empowerment. Nobody can hand empowerment to us on a platter. But having said that, I think there are different levels of empowerment. I think there is a certain level of empowerment in the family. Do you have enough decision making and self direction authority within the family? Do you And then there is empowerment at a community level. Are women being recognized as community leaders and things like that? And then of course, empowerment within organizations, such as, even if you look at the monks and nunnery and you have your own organizations, what kind of empowerment is there? So I think it is. And also, cutting through all this, I think, is a cultural and a social aspect which we cannot disregard, because empowerment really is a factor of our culture that we are born into, right? I mean, we cannot paint all Buddhist women with the same brush. We cannot paint all of one culture with the same brush, because in different pockets and different cultures, even in the same culture, in different pockets, women are much more empowered than some other women, right? So I think it is really a factor of the society, the culture we live in, and not so much Buddhist and non-Buddhist versus the society and the culture. What is one aspect that is very helpful for Buddhist women, particularly, like you said, is the Sangha. I think that feeling of brotherhood or sisterhood is, really helps bring this sense of empowerment even more. That I have these go-to sangha that I can reach out to when I'm in doubt, or when I am in I don't know how to deal with certain things in certain way. So I think that is very empowering for me, because it builds that sense of self-confidence that, okay, I'm on the right path, and I'm doing things right, or this is how I need to tackle this, or things like that, or I'm practicing dharma in the right way. I'm not stepping outside of the noble eightfold path. So I think Buddhist women requiring empowerment specifically, I don't think it's really a factor of Buddhist, non-Buddhist, but much as it is a factor of our culture that we are raised in. I don't know what the others feel about it. Venerable Rongdao is smiling there.
Oh, thank you, Sister Smitha. That's very powerful. I sometimes have very complicated feelings about this notion of empowerment. I think within the context that we're just talking about earlier, identifying an inspiration, feeling inspired and empowered by these archetypes or examples, or the infinitely compassionate vows, right, of both Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It's a powerful thing, right? So then we do have this like context specific, right, situation in which, and even in, say, Vajrayana Buddhism, right, I mean, that's an initiation ceremony when a person is introduced, taught a certain practice, right? And then, on the other end of the spectrum, empowerment, very often used as a term, right, to either address or solve structural, institutional, social issues, that we are faced with these days. It's in that context that I sometimes feel and the whole idea of empowerment then, suggests that someone holds the power, right? And then they benevolently either disempower themselves or they share some of that power with the less powerful, right? In this particular social, structure, and that way, I feel that well, empowerment then, it's a way of reminding me that certain party, it's still powerful. Certain party still holds all the power, and that I should be thankful, right? That they're doing things to empower me, a maybe marginalized or not as powerful individual in that very structure and so on. So as I said, um, there are many ways of thinking about this. But no doubt that in our own learning about the Dharma and in our own practice, there are, of course, sources and instances and examples that we feel a strong connection with and we feel empowered by, right? I mean, no doubt about that.
Wonderful discussion. Venerable Tenzin Dasel, go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciated all these points you touched upon, Smitha, and as well as what Venerable Rongdao is saying. And I'm laughing and smiling too, because on the one hand, we've got to use concepts, right? We've got to do some kind of looking at this reality on the external relative world. And when we use those concepts, and that's in largely organized religions, just a bunch of big concepts put together, whether it's Buddhism or Taoism or Confucianism or Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism, whatever we're going to call these things, there are concepts. But as Smitha was saying, one thing we can kind of agree with is if we look at the collection of world history and the collection of world religion, that's why I studied for my master's even at a Christian seminary. I wasn't identified as a Christian, but what I did was a comparative religious studies looking for the women's voices. And even in Christianity, if you do one class I took, Women in the Bible, you'll only find 12 women characters really out of the Old and New Testaments that really stand out. And that's a big tome, and that's the most widely published book in the world. So where are the women is the first question that come up in my mind when I think of any sacred tradition. How has women's wisdom been held and transmitted? So this gets a bit to this point of what Venerable Rongdao was saying about empowerment. Someone has to hold this tradition to give you some part of it, which in some sense is the importance of lineage and of Sangha. Why did the Buddha establish the fourfold Sangha? He wanted ordained monks, ordained nuns, lay women, laymen, because he saw those as pillars that would uphold the Dharma. So you need communities that are actually really good vessels to hold this wisdom knowledge. And rightly, we don't say it's only for Buddhists, because the Buddha said he was Buddha, which means he's awakened and that he attained Nibbana. It's been blown out. But he didn't just say, I'm a Buddhist for only Buddhists. I only want to make Buddhist people like me now. He just said everyone has this potential to awaken. But once you awaken, you get out of all these categories. So we've kind of got to come to hold the relative and the ultimate goals together. And on the relative, we can say very clearly, if we look historically, still women are much more oppressed. A female embodied being has many more challenges, much less likely to be educated. That we can even read and speak, many of us, many languages, is very unique still to most women's experiences. And even many people today on the planet aren't literate. And so, but traditionally still, as Smitha mentioned, if a family has a son who wants to become a monk, it traditionally is really rejoiced and celebrated. And yet, even in our generation, I made a little short documentary video called "Her Way is the Highway" about 4 Buddhist friends of mine from India and from very Buddhist families who wanted to become female monastics, whose parents said, "No, you're not doing that. We either need," and one from Tibet. One, we need you to stay here on the farm. You're really good with the animals, raise them, take care of them, and then take care of us when we get old. Or one Indian friend, Dr. Tenzin Dasel from Ladakh, whose family wanted her to be a medical doctor, not a Tibetan healer and a nun, but they all went against their family wishes because the calling to become ordained was so strong. And they all really had to, show up and either run away from Tibet without their family's permission, become a nun, who then became a great Geshe-ma, who then went back to Tibet and had her family really appreciate what she did of her own accord. Another, Dr. Tenzin Dasel, who became a Tibetan doctor, healer, and a great nun, and founded the Ladakhi Nuns Association, whose family didn't speak to her for 8 years, and then finally saw the benefit that her reasons were she didn't accept the domestic violence that she saw in her society. When she was born in 1966, she didn't see choices that appealed to her to just become a mother who wouldn't be educated, would be a farmer. And so she pursued her own dream to get education. And then she felt so close to the Buddha Dharma to even go against her family's wishes to still follow that and be ostracized for 8 years. So there are very real consequences for, the structural relative societal obstacles that we need to overcome. My own mother, even, obviously, not obviously, but the US is not a Buddhist country. That's obvious. It's becoming more interested in Buddhism, which is fantastic, because there's a lot in Buddhism that can be shared through a very rational, scientific kind of lens, as well as through the philosophy. And then maybe through your own experience, you get more feelings to the actual religiosity of it or the Dharma practices. But still, we need to be able to hold those things, to look at the relative level of challenges, and then to see why, like, traditions being held that give empowerments by those who are holding that tradition very carefully as their life calling, which in Buddhism actually happens to have been up to this point largely monks, especially in Vajrayana Buddhism in Tibet. But at one time, generations ago, 2/3 of the Tibetan society were all in the nunneries, in the monasteries. They were monastics. They were learning and studying. And so we have great examples also in every tradition of the female practitioners, lay and monastic. So I don't want to dismiss the idea of empowerment entirely from within the tradition, because there are sacred texts and rituals that are learned that do carry very big blessings that are different than the secular sense of, yes, I can do it, I want to do it, I take this on myself to follow the path. So even to follow Buddhism, that's a selfless path. At the end, you're transcending all these ideas of gender, concepts, and what have you. You need to have the self-confidence at the beginning, at least a healthy sense of a relative ego that I can walk the path, I can attain. So we've got to try to hold this discussion in different levels. And I just wanted to kind of clarify a little bit both of the wonderful comments Smitha made as well as Venerable Rongdao, to appreciate, there's empowerment, but the goal is enlightenment. And we all will have those different kinds of journeys and experiences.
I would like to, if I may, Andreea, I would like to just very quickly clarify that I did not, by no means at all, suggest that dismissed or dropped this whole idea of empowerment. I thought my comments earlier, is mainly to do with how it seems like there are so many different ways of understanding, right, the term empowerment in different contexts, right, religious, social and cultural and political and so on and so forth. And sometimes, that it makes me even think that maybe we shouldn't call Abhisheka, or the initiations, empowerment, because it can be confusing and so on. So, but by no means suggesting that we should take it, less seriously, or with less veneration or respect.
No, thank you. I didn't take it that way. I just wanted to unpack it a little bit, because I think we're having a great discussion now, and it's very rich, and we have the capacity to really try to, unpack it and make it more clear, because these are really important topics to this day that we're in. And that's all I meant. I didn't take any disrespect. I just wanted to kind of give it a little bit more of a separation there.
Dear panelists, I want to bring a question in from our audience. We have Maitri Singh, and they are asking, why are there, comparing to male bodhisattvas, very few female bodhisattvas in Mahayana Buddhism? And I know that Venerable Tenzin Dasel already exemplified a few bodhisattvas, female bodhisattvas that are with us today. So I don't know if anybody else would want to add to this question. Go ahead.
I don't know if it actually answers the question, but let's expand that question to, in, say, our collections of Buddhist writings, for instance, why are there more eminent monks than eminent nuns? Why are there more male politicians than female politicians? Why are there more male doctors than female doctors, and so on and so forth, right? I'm going to leave that to you, Andreea, as to which direction, you would like to take this discussion to. But basically, I think the answer to those questions, it's probably the same. Why are women less visible and less represented, both in history, both in the religious world and in the non-religious world, and also, up until today, right? So then and of course, I think as individuals, that leaves us a lot to reflect on and think about as to our role in this and our potential contribution in overcoming this, right?
That is a really good point in terms of, this is not a Buddhist problem. This is a structural, overarching problem that we've been facing for centuries, unfortunately. So there are no good answers except to come together in community, having to have these discussions and to pose these problems, and learn from each other, learn how we move in the world, and how we make small changes, how we impact by the way we guide ourselves, and obviously I'll bring it back to the sacred text and to our own practices. So when I personally think about receiving or getting empowered, feeling empowered by my sangha, I think about, I hope to get examples of things that come to me to great difficulty, and seeing other people having surpassed them, and being able to get inspiration and consider this one challenge that I have from a different angle. So having that multidimensional view and not getting stuck and attached emotionally from what I'm feeling and experiencing, and instead kind of trying to scope things out more, create more space, and understand that things can be resolved in more than one way. So I wanted to add that layer to it.
And can I just jump in a little bit on that Mahayana question from that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Vajrayana Buddhism falls under the umbrella of Mahayana Buddhism. And so we share that bodhisattva ideal. And one thing that we work with these different archetypes or bodhisattva stories is the divine, kind of the feminine and the masculine, and they're always together. So if you've ever seen Vajrayana, we don't show them here, but if you see like the highest yoga tantra, they're always in union. There's always a male and a female together, joined. And the feminine typically signifies and represents the wisdom of emptiness, the wisdom of shunyata, the deep insight of the wisdom of the Buddha's seeing of where the Dharma leads. And the masculine represents this activity, or what's called skillful means in the world. And so the path is really that you need the prajna paramita, who is the mother also of kind of the wisdom of all the Buddhas. She's the wisdom of the perfection of wisdom. And her sutra is one of the most, the Heart Sutra is one of the most, probably the most recited sutra of all the sutras. So the prajna paramita is the wisdom going beyond. And so she's always symbolized as this divine female. And then this other archetype of the active bodhisattva, the Mahayana bodhisattva, the one who's going to go out in the world and represent and do these activities of compassion, become the teacher, go forth and share the Dharma, create social projects, be that active principle in the world, typically takes on the male role. And I don't know if this also goes back to like this idea of yin and yang, and you have the depth or the yabgyum from India. I know it does go back to that. You've got like this divine receptor who holds the wisdom, and then from that comes out the expression of it. And this would work with this idea of this kind of patriarchal world where the males were the ones who went out. They were the adventurers. They were the explorers. They were the ones who were traveling and ruling. The women stayed home, shared, I'm sure many women have attained many great insights, and they were active in their own way, maybe not as wide and publicly as the men, because the men had agency. Males have still more agency to be traveling around throughout the world. It's changing, which is great. But, even now when I'm traveling through airports, I often get told I'm in the wrong restroom, that the men's restrooms across the way. I say, no, I know. I'm tall and, I got the haircut, but I'm female. And as soon as I talk, everyone's laughing because all the women's here. Oh, okay, definitely it's a lady. Or, being on the female train in Delhi, the first train of every subway is women only. And I've had often been approached by the station guard going, get out. I said, no, really, I know I'm in the right train. So women themselves have stereotypes of what is looking female, what is male, and who has agency to travel and share the Dharma. And as we have already talked about for a long time, the males have been the ones who have agency to move around the planet. And so likely the male bodhisattva image became much more well recorded and talked about. It doesn't mean that the females didn't have their own sphere of influence in holding that wisdom, but together the highest is that we all have both. We all need the wisdom of emptiness to realize, and we all need to take the activities of skillful means out into and going forth to share that, as we said, with everybody, not even with just human gendered beings, but with all of life. We're kind to animals, to the planet, to the plants, to the insects, to the fish, to the invisible ones that we can't see, even naughty ones that are, maybe harmful spirits. We still say, hey, that's okay. Please, I'm practicing for you too. I want you to have the benefits. And we bring this loving kindness actively as a force. But I think traditionally the male bodhisattvas had more privilege to be seen and then have their stories written down. But we're going to change that, right? My brothers and sisters, we're all going to change that together.
Agreed. It's called visibility. Less visible. There are, may I? There's even gender inequality or discrimination against women is a feature common in most or all society, I would say, including in Malaysia. Very often they say, yes, you are all equal, but there is no equal empowerment. In Mandarin, we say 平等 equal, but 没有平权 权利的权 I think Venerable Rongdao may be able to extend from there. So not only the lay, but male and female, monastic and lay. too. So it is a common features. We try to narrow the gap, yeah, like Venerable said. We make it more even. And I like the one you say we are not only Buddhists can get enlightened. Buddha was not a Buddhist before he get enlightened. So it's really the practice.
Indeed. Thank you, Sister Ling. We have already started addressing this in many ways, but our final question for the day brings us into from the archetypal to the collective to the individual practice. So what I want to extend out to our panelists, and hopefully there's going to be new additions, is what does it mean to each of you to feel empowered? And what does it mean to take agency?
So I could go first. You want me
Please.
to, Andrea? Yeah, okay. What does it mean for me to feel empowered? So I think I cannot answer that without just giving a little bit background about myself. I've been born and raised in a Hindu family, and as you know, the Hindu pantheon of female deities is huge, is very vast. In the whole year, I think who we worship most was Durga, Kali, Lakshmi, Saraswati. These are the pujas that I've seen at home, right? And they're all female deities. So I think, as cliched as it sounds, we were raised worshipping female goddesses all through the year. So that is not an aberration for us, it was the norm, right? And I had a very strong mother who, despite all the challenges she had faced, she was a very self confident woman. And I think from the very go, she had instilled the same self confidence in us, right? So for me, empowerment is really boils down to self confidence in the ability to do what I want to do. I never felt that my family was any less empowering. They allowed me to choose for myself at all times, right? Um, but when I got to the workplace is when I started seeing more of the subtle biases, differences, varying degrees of so-called empowerment, right? Some freedom have, given to the men, or some differences. You could see the undertone there, and I did take on my share of battles where I could. But I did see a large number of women who are extremely timid and who came from very less empowered families as well. And that's where I mentioned, I work for an organization that actually worked for women in technology, and that exposed me to a lot of women who did not have the self confidence that I fortunately had. And so, being able to help them, encourage them and get them to a level where they can make their own decisions and determine their future. So that was something I did. But if I look at my dharma, if I take a closer look at my dharma journey, right? I was born into a Hindu family. Then for a little bit, I turned into a complete non-believer. I was a very devout Hindu, moved to a non-believer for some time, then started dabbling in Buddhism because I know there was some seeking that was happening within, and I had to keep looking. So dabbled in Buddhism for some time, and then became a serious, dharma practitioner. And at that point in time, when I became a serious practitioner, I think I was very fortunate to have, Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo, whom I worship as my guru, Venerable Rubina Curtin, Pema Chodron, Venerable Thupten Chodron, Geshama Kensen Wangmo, and numerous other teachers who actually made it so much easier for me. Actually, they are the ones who did the hard work. But, to me, when I came into this path, I really did not, feel any less empowered because they were there before me. So for a minute, if I put myself in a position where I'm, started my dharma journey and these venerables and great women were not there, oh my God, it would have been hard. It would have been very hard, right? So definitely, they are the ones who have led the transformation and made it easier for us. So to me, it boils down to having the self-confidence that I can practice too and I can get enlightened too. However, I must mention here a very interesting anecdote. When I had gone to one of the centers, and I was still getting to learn, going to the retreats and all, and there was a very helpful male practitioner who actually kind of guided me through, and giving me, helping me along the way. And he one day told me that, he was explaining to me who a geisha was. And he said, but the geishamas are not equal, they are somewhere lower. So I think there is still a long way to go as far as for that perception to change in the common public. But having said that, I must say that, all my male teachers as well have been extremely, extremely empowering. They have never made me feel that I do not have it in me, or I lack in some way, or, that I cannot attain enlightenment, right? So I did have this complex that I am a lay person. So there is a certain sense of empowerment you need to feel if you're lay, that, that okay, I'm not, I don't have all the time in the world and resources in the world like the monks and nuns who can probably practice a lot more. So, but that gap was bridged having this beautiful sangha that I have, whether it's Jetsunma, Venerable Rubina, Venerable Dasel herself, Geshe Dorji Damjul, Geshe Lagdo, they've all been around to help me develop that sense of self-confidence. So for me, it's all about self-confidence.
Really wonderful. Thank you, Smitha. I want to point out to the time we have about 12 minutes left and a few questions. So I will if you feel moved to answer the initial question on what makes you feel empowered, we still welcome that. Venerable Rongdao?
Very, very quickly. I'm not sure if I will directly answer the questions. Ways that I feel empowered. Just like what Sister Smitha said, I think I constantly feel very blessed, very fortunate, and I'm on a daily basis, trying hard to acknowledge, all the privileges that I have that a lot of others don't as well. So instead of calling it an empowerment, I want to, describe what I'm going to say next as a strong sense of connection and continuity. So we talked about archetypes, we talk about, bodhisattvas and Buddhas earlier in our discussion. I'd like to also very quickly perhaps draw our attention to the countless, and of course very often these are nameless Buddhist women, right? Men, lay monastics before us, right? Who were courageous, who tried hard, who insisted, right, that they have this opportunity to practice, to dedicate, their life to the Dharma and so on. And as I said, we know Mahapajapati, but then there are also many in between Mahapajapati and us that we don't know their names. And for me, it's that continuity. It is knowing that, the reason why we're here doing what we're doing is because of the selfless dedication and courage and vows of these women, matriarchs, right? For me, as speaking as a Buddhist woman, right, that makes me feel both very fortunate and, in a way, empowered.
Sister Piling?
Yeah, I like the way that Venerable Randall, when we feel blessed, is actually another form of empowered. And today I just came back from our annual general meeting, and it's an election year, and I was re-elected as the president again, my fourth term. And yeah, I see it as not empowerment, but it's a privilege to serve. Yeah, this actually our Venerable Mahinda, our general advisor, actually reminded us that we are not obligated to take up or to go for nomination to take up the president post to serve, but seeing it as a privilege to serve, then I feel blessed and empowered and go forward. Thank you.
How wonderful. Thank you for your service, Sister Ling.
And
Tenzin.
yeah, thank you. And so, yes, to just say yes to everything that's been said before me, I agree. As a female who was born in 1966 and maybe one of the older ones here, that somehow being born in the United States, you're given this idea very early on that you can do anything you want. And so I was also raised in a family, my parents were both teachers, being told, oh, you can even become the first female president of the United States if you want. And I was like, no, thanks, not politics. But being raised partly Catholic as a child and then partly as a Native American tradition by my father's side, gave the sense of the sacred journey of life at a very young age. And it really compelled me to want to know more about what does it look like for a girl or for a young woman to live in a sacred journey. And so I started asking a lot of questions at my catechism, my sacred school learnings, and then met some nuns from Italy when I was quite young who moved to the United States because they wanted more religious freedom. They wanted to do their own sister house project. And so I had also from a young age kind of some people around me who were encouraging. And my mother's mother, my grandmother, just lived the street away from where I grew up, which was in that time even quite unusual because often Americans move very far away from their families of origin. And she always encouraged me. And so from a young age, I was trained to ask questions. I was reading life stories about Gandhiji and the biographies, and I kept looking for the women, but I want to know about the women's stories. How did they do it? Because we need examples. We need inspiration. As Venerable Rongdao said, we need to read the original Therigatha of the female voices of the first early arahats that were recorded, that their original words of what they gave up and what they encountered, their suffering, and how they decided to go forth into the robes. And that can inspire us not necessarily to have to become monastics, but just to understand what is deep renunciation, and then that they did attain, that they did realize and become arhats. So that gives us a historical, as she said, all the way back almost 2,600 years ago, formula that works, and a message from the Buddha of, yes, of course, Ananda, women are likewise capable of attaining the fruits of the path. And so for some period of my life, also, as Smitha mentioned, she did, I kind of strayed away. I definitely knew I wasn't going to follow Christianity. And my own Native American, I had some influence from my family. For a while, I kept my meditation practice going. But when I got to college and I looked at the world religions, traditions, I was like, geez, they're all led by men and all the books were written by the men. So how do you find the women's voices? So this had been my compelling question. And I thought, well, maybe you just have to become that. I mean, look, you were the first girl on the boys' baseball team. You were the first girl on the boys' basketball team. You know that you're interested in making peaceful social change come about. And if you feel this is going to be an important contribution, you've got this precious human life. 20 years ago, I connected with a real genuine Lama from Ladakh who had been a monk since he was 7 and was blessed that I could directly start to take these teachings into Buddhism from a very, verified teacher and source, because they come into the US in very different ways. But the connection with my root Lama here, Ken Rinpoche, who's in the gold over my next to His Holiness the Dalai Lama, brought me very genuine connection into the Dharmic path. And yes, and through these beautiful lamas who are male, obviously, but they were holding the tradition, but saying, yes, of course, we want anyone who's interested is welcome to practice. And yes, you also, of course, have qualities. And yes, females can become masters. They didn't say that to me directly, obviously, but everything they taught and everything they explained and answered the questions that I asked, gave me that green light. And then, of course, you can't see in this little one, but is Venerable Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, who as a Westerner also having those examples, as Smitha said, Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, Pema Chodron, Karma Lexi Somo, Venerable Tupten Chodron. These are Western women coming from a totally different non-Buddhist background, Lama Sutra Malione. They did it in their generation and proved that if you keep going with the path, you can not only benefit so many others, very genuinely uphold the Dharma, but your own qualities will ripen. They just have to. They come to fruition. That's what I needed. I needed some kind of evidence, not just my own experience or not just some, this is what these ladies did. They went forth 2,600 years ago, but some contemporary living examples which show the continuity and connection that we're living contemporary lives all the way back to that. This has been benefiting not just those first Indian women who went forth, but it's spread around the world, and surely countless women have realized and attained qualities. Now I think is the wonderful ripening opportunity that yes, we get reelected to these positions because we want to give service. We carry the Dharma into the West because we know that the Dharma has benefits, even if people don't want to be Buddhists, that loving kindness and compassion, wisdom, equanimity, truth-telling, right speech, very much in high order these days, very relevant to non-Buddhists and Buddhists alike. And so my empowerment comes from my own heart to know where I came from and to know where I want to go, and to, just to begin myself being of benefit, benefiting others, benefiting the Dharma, and the results in the end that the Dharma continues to remain in this world that so desperately needs it, that is so desperately suffering, to only be of benefit, not just as Buddhist or Buddhism, but because these qualities, infinite loving kindness, infinite compassion, infinite joy, infinite equanimity, the four Brahma Viharas, these are relative to human beings and to all of life. If we're living this, we'll only benefit and will never harm. And that empowers me.
How wonderful. So are you saying that in order to feel empowered, we have to be it? That easy?
Just do it, as Nike says. Yes, just become it. It is Buddha. I've thought about this, that, in Sanskrit and translations, it's very difficult sometimes. And in Tibetan, they don't use definite articles. And in English, we do. We say the Buddha. But really, Buddha just became Buddha, just awakened. It's the mind, it's the heart mind, and it's the citta. It's not the conceptual, intellectual, or physical brain, but the awareness is what becomes Buddha. And yes, then we just become that. That's all it is. And then we can rest in that beautiful pose that Venerable Rongdao mentioned, that we see the Kuan Yin. She's just chilling out. She's just there with her love and beauty and kindness and her peace of mind and her good heart, warmly thinking like, whoever wants to sit next to me, come on, let's share a cup of tea.
Wonderful, wonderful. I am so happy and honored to have been here together with you in conversation. We have a few questions, but I'm afraid we may not be able to get around them. I know we have some dedications, and Venerable Rongdao, as I'm sure all of us have to get about our day and sprinkling our empowerment and our beauty in this world. So I will bring it back to the Sattva team, and just once again, big love to you all for everything you do and how you walk through the everyday life. Thank you.
Thank you for your nice and beautiful, skillful moderation, Sister Andreea. We really also appreciate that big contribution that you made. And I just want to give a shout out to the Samiksha's team, and also to our brother Chong, who's doing all this skillful behind the scenes technology, and to Brother Sherab, who really holds this vessel of Sattva, who are our brothers. You see, we're working as sisters and brothers together, and may all beings benefit.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Same
everyone.
here.
It was, yeah. Thank you, everyone. It was really very enriching, and I was like very delighted to hear to all of you. So I think before upcoming events, okay. So may we have the slides of upcoming events? Yeah. So these are going to be the upcoming events which we'll be having in the month of December. So on the 5th of December, we have a guided meditation by Myungan Sunim. And then on the 12th of December, which is Sunday, and on 26th December, we'll be having Samiksha series programs. So, which will be conversation of Buddhist philosophies of Madhyamika and Yogacara, which will be moderated by both of us. So once again, I would like to thank you all for joining us, and then let's dedicate our merits, whichever we have gained by having this very fruitful discussion. So I invite Samiksha for this English dedication prayer, and then I would also like to invite every one of you to have their own respective dedication prayer from their own traditions. Yeah, Samiksha.
The four great vows. Sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to consume them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. The Buddha way is inconceivable. We vow to attain it. May all beings be well, happy, and safe. Thank you. Yeah, so maybe now, Venerable Tenzin Dasel.
Okay, I would like to say the merits in Tibetan, if that's okay, because Tibetan's a very rare language now. It's under threat of disappearing almost. Gangriwa we korwe shinkam dear pendang dewa malu changwe ne chenrezi wan tenzin gatsoi shapezi te bardu ten gyurchi. Bodhi mind, precious and sublime, may it arise where it has not arisen, and where it has arisen, may it flourish and grow forevermore. Nig me se we ter chen chen rezi, di me ken te wang po jam pel yang, du pung ma lu jam se sang we dat, gang chen ke pe su yen son ka pa. Lob sang drak te shabla so wade.
Thank you. Now, Venerable Rongdao, could you please?
Sure. I would just say the four vows in Chinese. 终生无边誓愿度，烦恼无尽誓愿断，法门无量誓愿学，佛道无上誓愿成。May all sentient beings be happy and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Ling.
Yes, I chant in the Pali. We'll always end this one. So Dewa Vasantu Kalena Sasa Sampati Hitucha Bitu Bhavantu Lokocha Raja Bhavantu Damiko. In English is may the rain fall in due season and may there be the right conditions for all good fortune. May the world be prosperous and peaceful. May the kings always be righteous. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Suki
Thank
Hoto.
you.
All be well and happy.
Sister Smitha.
So I'll say a piece of the dedication prayer in English. I dedicate the merit thus gathered towards the realization of the beats and the prayers of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three times and to the upholding of the doctrine of scripture and insight. May I, in all lives, through the force of this merit, never separate from the four wheels of the Mahayana vehicle and accomplish all the stages of the path, renunciation, bodhicitta, perfect view, and the two stages. From my two collections, vast space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then at last,
now
Sister
at last,
Andreea.
Sister Andreea.
I will share with you the Bodhisattva vows, since my dedication is very similar to that of Tenzin, Venerable Tenzin and Smitha. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion, today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
A big heartfelt thanks to Sattva for putting this together so skillfully. Again, a shout out to Brother Chong and Brother Sharab for that. And we want to send some dedication and for healing for one of our panelists, Sonia, who was unfortunately too sick to join us today. So we wish for her to have a swift healing and be very well soon.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Recovery.
Thank you and be well, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.